Among many other methods of research, today we will discuss comparative method, its historical contexts, and its elements. First of all, we have to know that comparative method is not new in research methodology. It is old, but it is only 19th century that from where the social theory started using comparative method as a methodical tool. The main focus or main attraction of comparative method is that social theorists believed that by using comparative method we will discover scientific laws of society, just as by using natural method we get natural laws of nature. Same, by using comparative method we will get scientific laws of societies, and by that specific laws we can understand the regularities of coexistence, succession among the forms of social life, and we can also systematically compare different parts of society. It must not be forgotten that in the 19th century, sociology and anthropology, the study of social and cultural phenomena, was typically combined with the study of the physical or biological aspects of human life. Yes, we already know that from functionalism, that sociology and anthropology were mainly related to physical and biological aspects of human life. The early sociologists, namely Emile Durkheim in France, Herbert Spencer in England, and Max Weber in Germany, considered comparison to be one of the basic process of the way human beings think. So, according to Emile Durkheim, Herbert Spencer, and Max Weber, they think that only by comparing human behavior, human society, we can understand the whole human world or whole society. That's why the comparative method remained a very vital part for their in their research methodology. But there is a difference between the use of that comparative method. Emil Durkheim uses comparative method in more systematic way. On the other hand, Spencer and Weber uses comparative method, but the but not in a systematic way as Durkheim. It is very important if we want to gather knowledge by using comparative method, then we must have to use as use it and in a systematic way. Only by using comparative method in a systematic way we will get the actual societal phenomena. Durkheim were greatly influenced by the organic analogy. Durkheim in particular developed a methodological use of the organic analogy in formulating a comparative approach to understanding the social world. Durkheim's systematic use of the comparative method gave an impetus to its wide application in sociology and social anthropology during the first half of the 20th century. So here we come to know that Durkheim was heavily influenced by organic analogy. So to compare the society and its different parts, he uses comparative method in a systematic way, and only the credit of comparative method, the credit for using comparative method in sociology till now in a systematic way only goes to Durkheim, that he is the only one who uses it in a very systematic way. On the other hand, Max Weber's approach to the comparative method took a different road because he was not at all sympathetic to viewing sociology inquiry ending with the exploration of causes and functions of social phenomena. So here we get a difference between Durkheim and Weber. So Durkheim is more uh, inquisitive, or Durkheim is more concerned to explore the causes and functions of social phenomena. On the other hand, Weber was not that much of concern about their meanings, about their functions and causes. So Durkheim, by using comparative method, try to focus or try to discover the causes and functions of social phenomena. On the other hand, Max Weber was more concerned with the meanings of that specific social phenomena. That's why the uses of comparative method are different by two sociologists. Not only was the early use of the comparative method tied to the idea of a natural science of society, it was more specifically tied to the theory of evolution. Evolution, yes, we already read that evolution, from where the functionalism, evolution, after that the functionalist theories came. So the method of comparative method, the method comparative method is old, that it was related to evolutionary theory. A large part of the 19th century anthropology was concerned with the origins of social phenomena and the reconstruction of the stages through which they had evolved from their most simple to their most complex forms. So here we get another point. We already read evolutionary theory. What is evolutionary theory? Evolutionary theory is a theory which is more concerned to get the origins, transformations, change of a specific society. So we already knew that by comparative method, by using comparative method, we can get any kind of comparison between two types of society. We can get causes as well as origins as well as their functions. So it is very clear for us that that's why evolutionary theory was very much related to comparative method, just because it is only by using comparative method we will get the transformation, origin and change of a specific society. That's why comparative method is very much related to evolutionary theory. So it was the history of historical root of comparative method. Now we have to understand the elements of the comparative approach. Before starting elements of the comparative approach, we have to understand that to make the comparative method systematically fruitful, we have to follow some specific elements. So here we are reading the elements of the comparative approach only to make it systematize, only to make it systematic fruitful. So those are the elements which make comparative method more useful in sociological research. Notwithstanding the critical remarks in the previous section on the problems of negotiating between comparison and the rule of no value judgment, the comparative method has been used in sociology as a matter of its natural practice. To state some of the features in a schematic fashion, we find the following characteristics. Those characteristics are: first, believe in the possibility of a natural science of society. So we already know that comparative method believes in the possibility that we will get we will get some laws from society, just like in natural science. Just like natural science, we will get laws of society. That is the first belief in the possibility of comparative method. The second is the goal of detachment and an uneasy link with the theory of evolution. Yes, uh, that is very much related to the theory of evolution. And the goal of detachment is is also related to comparative method. What is the goal of detachment? Goal of detachment means uh, it enables us to look where the society is attached with some specific parts, where the society is not attached with specific parts. You have to remember the functional theory. What is functional theory? Functional theory told us that every system is depends on its units, every structure depends on its patterns, every patterns has specific function. Only on the basis of those function, system can be a system can live, or a system can exist. That is the goal of detachment, where comparative method clearly make us able to see the detachment parts and as well as attachment parts of a specific society, or various society. Influence of organic analogy. Yes, we know that uh, Durkheim is very much influenced by organic analogy, and he uses comparative method in a systematic way. So somewhere systematic comparative method is influenced by organic analogy. The intent to have systematic comparisons. That is the last point, where we can see that comparative method also always intend to compare any kind of thing in a systematic way. Now, those lines are very important. Though sociologists have argued over the first three characteristics, they have remained by and large faithful to the intent of having systematic comparisons. So maybe there are some controversy, or maybe there are some arguments regarding the first three characteristics, but every sociologist are constant in their view that comparative method needs a systematic comparison in order to get any kind of uh, data from society. For this reason, it is necessary to look at the following elements of the method. So, before starting elements of comparative method approach, I already told that those are the elements, or those are the process through which we can make the comparative method more systematic. So now we will read and understand what are those elements which make a comparative method more systematic for a specific society. The first is methods of comparison. What is that? As Macfarlane. The name is very much important just because Macfarlane gave so much vision regarding comparative method. Macfarlane noted comparison can be undertaken in numerous ways, each appropriate to its task, and one cannot lay down in advance which will be the best. All one can do is to raise some of the alternatives. It is in quotation, but we can understand that the method of comparison totally depends on the researcher, totally depends on the society, totally depends on the research object, that what kind of thing the researcher want to analyze. The first is, we could consider a single society. So if someone wants to uh, use comparative method, he or she can take a single society. He or she can compare the societal parts of that specific single society. That is the first method. The second is, we could consider several societies of a generally similar nature. Generally similar nature. The nature should be similar, but unlike the first condition, here the society is several. Remember that in first condition there is a single society, and now there are several society, but similar in nature. Okay, so if we have several societies which are similar in nature, we can clearly compare both society. We can easily compare specific parts of both societies. We can compare specific aspects or specific patterns of both society. That is the second condition. So in the first, we have a single society and we are comparing some parts of that single society, and in the second part, and in the second condition, we have several societies. Maybe we are comparing both societies, uh, one or more societies which should be similar in nature, or maybe we will compare various parts of those several societies in different periods if this exhibits some limited cultural change. We could compare several, perhaps numerous societies of widely different nature. So we already uses a single society. We already compare several societies of similar nature. Now we will compare between several, perhaps numerous societies which are different in nature. So the society are not similar in nature. Now they are different in nature. So those are the conditions which could be used in the methods of comparative analysis or comparative method. By using those kind of condition, we will get different kind of aspect of different societies. It totally depends on the researcher, what type of society, which type of society, or the nature, whether it is similar or different, he or she will choose. It depends on totally on the researcher. Next, the unit of comparison. The unit of comparison in a word should be similar in nature. We can't compare the handshake of China with the family system of England, or we can't compare the tea of America with the noodles of China. So here the point is the unit of that comparative method should be similar one. If we want to compare between the namaste of India and the handshake of England, that is okay, that they are similar in nature. If we want to the tea of India and the coffee of China, that is okay, that is similar in nature. That is the main point of the unit of comparison, that the unit should be similar, should be in a similar magnitude which the researcher is comparing. The third is the purpose of the comparative approach. Yes, the purpose is the main important thing. According to those purpose, first of all, it distance the over familiar. Second, it familiarize the distant. And third, make absence visible. All three purpose of comparative approach is very much important. The first is distance the over familiar. As a human being, so many things of our society are very familiar for us that we forget that is it natural or is it normal. For example, for Indians, it is very common that if we meet someone, we will do the act of namaste, or we smile as a symbol of gesture. So it is very much uncommon, or it is not familiar for us that we will not talk or we will not smile. This is against our gesture, that if we met with someone and we will not smile as a gesture, or we will not talk with him, with that person. So as an Indian, it is very obvious, or it is very common, or it is very familiar for us, or it is very over familiar for us, that we have a specific kind of uh, gesture that is called as mannerism, or that is called as etiquette. Okay, so for you and us, this is very familiar thing, but maybe in some other culture, it is not obvious that whenever two people met with each other, they will smile, they will talk. The moral of the story is, sometimes our culture, the specific gestures or specific etiquettes of our culture and our society become very over familiar for us, that we forget that maybe it is not natural for others, maybe it is not normal for others. So by using comparative method, we can understand that maybe a specific thing is very much over familiar for us, but maybe not familiar for others. So comparative method enable us to distance the over familiar things. It taught us that not everything which we are thinking that as common is common in the whole world. Distancing the familiar or turning the obvious into the unobvious means to create a gap between oneself and the familiar things, so that one can see them in different light. Most researchers face the problem of not seeing what is familiar or similar to one's own, and hence self-evidently normal. So what is normal for us may be not normal for others. So that is the comparative method which taught us, or which enable us to see the society uh, um, not from the lens of us, but from the lens of others, by distancing the over familiar things. We will notice again the concerted attempt, even within theoretical realms of sociology, to question the common sense, the taken for granted aspects of reality. Yes, we already know that there is a attempt in sociology that we always question the common sense. We always attempt to question the reality, and that specific attempt, or that specific ability to question the common sense or question the reality, comes from the comparative method. Familiarizing the distant. What is uncommon, maybe what is uncommon for a specific society or a specific culture may be very much common for other society or culture. So if we say that maybe we don't know any kind of cultural aspects of a specific society, by comparing that specific thing, maybe the food habit. If we are comparing the food habit between China and India, we will understand that eating cockroach or bats or rats is not abnormal, is not unnatural, because it's their food habit. The food habit depends on the culture, the food habit depends on the territory, the food habit depends on the geography, the food habit depends on the history. So by comparing the food habit, by comparing the culture of food habit, only by comparing we get to know that what is unfamiliar for us, or maybe what was distant for us became familiar for us. Familiarizing the distance, that is the second point. Many of the things we encounter in our work are so unfamiliar and distant that we cannot get inside their logic or understand them. This is equally problematic. The usual temptation is either to avoid the subject altogether, or to dismiss it as irrational nonsense. Now the solution may be known in a sort of way through the studies of others in other societies. Example would be the insights which anthropological studies of curious phenomena like blood feud or witchcraft gave to historians studying the same phenomena in the West. So here they uses the examples of witchcraft or blood feud, and I already used the example of food habit of China. That is what is unfamiliar for us, we clearly tagged them as irrational and nonsense. But is it so? No. Only by comparing, we get to know the reasons, the history, the territorial reasons, the cultural reasons of that specific thing, and that specific distant, or which was distant for us, became familiarized for us that it is not unnatural or abnormal. The third is making absence visible. We can use an example, that is, there is much more things present in our society which is visible, and there are much more things which is not present and they are invisible. For example, if you have any kind of problem with the emotion of Indian society, that Indian families are very much emotional. Okay, if you go to another society, maybe in Africa or in Europe, only there you will get, or you will understand that you are missing the emotion. The emotion is not present in that specific European country. That is the main thing, that the invisible things became visible just because in that specific society that is not present, and vice versa, the visible became invisible just because it is present in Indian society. So emotion in our society is very much invisible, that we can't understand that how much our family love us, or maybe we love someone else, because emotion is something which is natural for us, that much natural that it becomes invisible for us. But when we'll go to another society, maybe in Europe, only there, in the absence of emotion, the emotion became visible for us. By comparative method, we can understand that specific thing. That is all about comparative method, its history and its approach and its elements.